I'm just going to tell you right now, this video is going to be kind of long, but I'm going to get some things off my chest. So bear with me. If you're a fan of 42 Tribes, you're going to love this because it's going to be kind of petty. And I'm one of the least petty people ever. Matter of fact, I'm dipping back into some pettiness because this is one of those things where we got to be aware that it may just be season of the Sambo, because in a short period of time, I've seen so much Samboic energy that I'm just saddened. So I'm going to cover 3 examples. 2 on Twitter and 1 with Team Osiris. And each one is just as bad as the next. And the reason why I'm taking names today, I don't think I'll take names on Twitter. I might not. But first, since I said I wasn't going to do it, I wanted to quickly explain some of the reasons why ancient Egypt helped identify or form what I consider to be the 4 tenets of Black power. Number 1 is family. Egypt had little to do with that. That's me going through stuff and realizing that the first, I'd say corporation, first business plan, first business partnership is family. And there are too many ways where it's fundamentally broken through laws. Now, in some ways, it did kind of shape that, because I looked at 2 things when it came to family. I looked at how you don't see any type of gender war in ancient Egyptian texts. I mean, you might see some bickering and stuff, but there's no like feminism and stuff like that. There's no reason for women to march. There's no reason for a Tommy Sotomayor to go off on women. You don't hear in the music or whatever how women are hoes. They do kind of reference hoes, that's sort of through the Bible. But you don't really see this feud. Matter of fact, the best text where it talks about gender is talking about how you can keep a woman, like Ptah. Get her some oils, protect her, don't yell at her, But for the most part, the other reason is this. It's related to the second reason. These 4 tenets all are conjoined because I came up with it just by planting a logic forest, logic tree, logic forest. The second reason is I realized that, and this is something the ancestors had to tell me. The best way to build for the future, for the long term, is to first build your ability to build. And I've talked about this before, how the temples of nature, and they'd identify that nature as a god, and they'd go from there. Since they had 2,000 gods, they studied a lot of nature. They understood the natural world. And by doing so, even without a formal currency, they created an economy. And that sort of ties into 1. That's the second reason, because this is something I'm working on, and I want to be quick with this, but if you put the science of like politics, political science in your church, and you're as hyped about that as you are the choir, you'll get reparations, because you'll learn that you don't get reparations. And I make this point with one of the people that inspired Sambo season this video. You don't get reparations by begging and hoping. You get reparations by buying and directing. And understanding how to make those type of political moves is a science. That's a science. So that's how they're related. The second to the third. Because right there, if you have a temple system, With sciences, you're creating an industry out of your church the same way you did in music and damn near nothing else, because you couldn't run an African temple system in America. But then it also ties into reparations because that's the third. So far, just to summarize it so far, we have family, temple system, reparations. I looked at it and I was like, you know what? When you really break it down, African Americans can make a cold case, a harder case than people who've already received reparations for reparations with slavery off the table. You could just say, completely ignore slavery. We have all these human rights violations since. And one example of it is, and one nuanced example is Hollywood. I consider what Hollywood has done in ancient Egypt to be nothing but propaganda, which is the fourth one. So I could go into more detail. I will say this. If you were to make that case with Hollywood, or just make a case for reparations, you probably want to go private and public, just to be thorough. Plus, you got a lot of, and Hollywood would be the main private companies. Because when you take a nation that's done so much and to face it like that, that's dehumanization. It's just the same as any propagandist campaign, just the same as Nazi Germany with them pictures of Jews. It's just more nuanced. Because a lot of times we deal with so much negative, we don't appreciate the robber of the positive and the effects that would have. Plus we're talking a multi-billion-dollar industry, ancient Egypt. So if it's defaced, you have all of this fake science, and then you also got the companies too that look at. But let's get to Season of the Sambo, because it goes back to what I'm saying right now. I want to start on Twitter. Oh, wow. I'm looking at the whole thing right here. So you're just going to see how I went back and forth with these two fools on Twitter. I'm responding to Boyce Watkins. Lately, I've been replying to people a lot. And he said, Black Trump supporters don't bother me. What bothers me is any black person who believes that Democrats or Republicans are ever going to do right by black people. We must do right by ourselves. And I respond, it's all about whatever political party is talking reparations. And the reason why I responded to that is this whole thing about we got to do for ourselves it's like you're ignoring the elephant in the room. Like have you looked at all the people that have received reparations? Have you looked at all the inhumane things that have been done to you? Why let them off the hook when you can be strategic, get those extra resources, and do for yourself fueled by the resources? And of course, that goes back to reparations, 4 points of black power, getting a temple system, studying the science, utilizing the sciences, building an industry from there. Now you're funding it through reparations, and you're able to make your case for reparations through the acumen you learn in the temples when you go to whatever church is on with the program and has political sciences in their church, whatever church is talking reparations, whatever church is talking legal matters, because we got all these Moors that'll go on forever. I'm like, and okay, let's go to court, So I make that comment. It's all about what political party is talking reparations. All this do for self, of course. I'm not talking about Hungaria's temples. I'm talking about all these churches on my block. I'm not talking, So of course, that goes without saying. But you always got to have that smart Negro. Always. And then white folks, when they see that, and here it comes, you need to forget, this is somebody who calls himself black superiority, responds, you need to forget about reparations. No government or politician is going to support issuing checks to every black person in America so they can blow it on basketball shoes and hair weaves. Not going to happen. Now, I could see if he said it's not going to happen in this lifetime because of propaganda, going back to the 4 points, has created these limbaugh logic fools that act like we already received reparations. I mean, if you listen to a lot of these white Republicans that call themselves conservatives, even though they don't give a damn about conservation, they act like it already went down. We've gotten handouts. All you want is handouts. We ain't never got a goddamn thing. All the reparations, all that have gone in America have gone almost always to non-melanated people. The only time it goes to melanated people is when it's trickled down when they're trying to save capitalism. Capitalism always gets reparations. Got it from Obama, got it from Bush, got it from Clinton, got it from, I don't know about the Republicans for that. But everybody wants to save capitalism. Some company mostly ran by non-melanated people. They mess up the company, they mess up, and they're losing money, they're firing people, and they're like, oh man, America, we need some money. We need a handout. They get it. So I respond, I swear this is Negro Logic 101. We need to forget about justice and be second-class citizens. Reparations, that's only for white folks. Only we's need pep talks. Not resources, not power, hell, not even equality. So here comes another melanated man. And, these could be fake accounts. And I might go into why I think they are. But we got a dude with, he's not showing his face. He's showing dreadlocks. So this could be fake. But the thing is, because I think they might be fake accounts, I know there's enough people monitoring these threads to where I can make an example of them. Because you cannot argue against somebody when it comes to reparations. It's one of those things where if you're going to have justice and equality, melanated people in America and in Africa who face colonialism, they get them, period. There really isn't any other thing because everybody else is getting them. So if you can't be equal without it. So this, I'll just say it, B-Wire Masani, again, could be a fake account, jumps in and says Negro Logic 101 is taking all the wealth you make back to the same people you're demanding reparations from. I don't know about you being second class, but if you see yourself that way. So I respond, when reparations are for everyone but people classified as black, while no people have endured more human rights violations, it's a double standard, which makes black people second class regardless of how they see themselves. So I don't want to go back and forth all the way, but you can kind of see where this goes. Like B-Wire changed the subject and he's like, well, you lack leadership. I said, we also lack common sense and maturity. If we're thinking power and as thinking adults, we would have made political and social maneuvers to get reparations invested a long time ago. It's never too late to grow up. Okay, now this is when Sambo season, this is when I'm face palming. I'm face palming right here. His response was, if you are a follower of Dr. Martin Luther King, you're supposed to seek equality and inclusion, not power. Good, it's 2017. This is to everybody. This is to all of y'all. This is a call. I know I have some fans out there. If it's only 40 of you, make it 42, make it, double, because we can't go on like this. If this is real, and I've seen this before, I've seen this in person. I've argued with somebody who was homeless and was arguing against reparations. And for the dumbest reasons, he's like, I can't put a value on my blah, 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 or my ancestors, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, dude, you are homeless now. The hell are you talking? You can put a value on on just your common sense and well-being. You know what I mean? Because you're just deluding yourself. And this is what this dude said. If you're a follower of Darton, I mean, so I had to play it for him. I'm like, you can't play for a tie when everyone else is playing to win, then complain when you're left behind. Martin Luther King understood this, which is why he fought for reparations and power. And I posted his famous get art. Well, not now. It's not famous anymore because of, let's go back to the fourth pillar. Propaganda has turned Martin Luther King into Mr. Equality. I'm being thorough today because it's Sambo season and I'm seeing it. And for me, it's tough to watch because I've gotten older. And I can say, though, a lot of our icons have made mistakes because they weren't telling you this. So yes, Martin Luther King had a speech called Get Our Check. I had to retweet that. How many people engaged? 118. So that's 118 people that can't use that goddamn Martin Luther King shit again. The hell with that. That really bothers me. Because we've gone almost full circle with Martin Luther King. If anything, this dude was savvy, thinking power, making chess moves. I'm a fan of Dr. Martin Luther King. Yes, he didn't really seem to become double woke until very late in his life, almost before he was taken out. He was kind of common sense woke. Well, I don't want to share actually you end up sharing them. But who wants to walk around seeing black only signs? Okay? Nobody. That's an eyesore. I'm sure we can grow up and work together to that extent to where we don't have to see these segregated signs. And we to this day will get mad at Dr. Martin Luther King for integrating. The problem wasn't that we integrated. The problem was that we didn't get on that temple system, which should have been a thing right away. But it was taken away from us for so long, we lost it. It wasn't popping really and I'm weak on history, but I mean, I can say it was popping in Great Ghana, Great Ghana. But anyway, he responded, playing for a tie is what I mean by seeking equality. Is not what I mean by seeking equality. I'm like, bruh, if you aren't fighting for reparations, you aren't even fighting for equality, much less dominance like everybody else. I don't need to be equal, I'm superior. That's his response. We get this delusional Negro shit. So I said it again, delusional Negro logic. Argue that black people should not get reparations in the reparations capital of the world. Steadily pay taxes for reparations to albinos classified as white. That makes you second class objectively. But you can always delude yourself and say you are superior. I had to put say in caps. I am genetically, and the other dude is and then I noticed something about the other dude. I noticed he had a Malcolm X. I'm not kidding you. He had a Malcolm X picture. Like, even if he's some troll just trying to infiltrate, working for the Russians, because they were doing that. They had a website where they were trying to infiltrate the black community, and they were acting like us. They weren't acting like crazy ass right wingers. They were trying to act like us. They were trying to get in to fit in, which is more concerning, because once they can get in, that's when they start, once they sow, that's when they can reap. So, B-Wire. No, it was the other one, the Black Superiority dude. He has a Malcolm X picture in his profile. Not his avatar, his profile. I don't know if I said avatar. So I had to play a video for him. and his response was, "Read, I didn't say I was against reparations. I said that you're not going to get reparations." This guy was arguing, because I didn't read much of his argument. I kind of jumped off him. But he went back and forth a few times talking about why it's not going to happen, why it's not going to happen. Okay, but you believe that it could happen? Whatever happened to, it's like I said, he could have said it's not going to happen because we've endured all this propaganda and you got these delusional people on the monkey right, you know, the crazy side of Republicans. And you see this with melanated people too. You have people who seem to think that we've already received something, or will argue that, you know, that they'll start talking like Uncle Ruckus. Well, the white man took us out of the jungle, gave us jobs, taught us about Jesus. And I'm like, it's Sambo season and it's back. I don't know if it's because it's almost Christmas, but this is concerning because, come man. And I was like, yo, I may not live to see reparations, but when I die, people will know where I stood. And I wanted to add, unlike your bitch ass, who's arguing against something that allegedly you believe in. That's just stupid. But part of it is the Sambo nature always wants a job from white men. They're constantly practicing their ability to audition. That's the only thing I think was going on right there. It's... Hey, download this video because it might not stay up. I've had YouTube. I've been flagged for less than calling people Sambos, which is crazy because, I mean, you will hear that all day, every day. And if you actually take the time to look up who Sambo was a character who was a bad person. He was a slave, but he was a bad slave. And I don't mean bad slave like trying to run away. I mean, like, let's say you enslaved 10 people and one of them was just a terrible son of a bitch. That's Sambo. And not to say that these people are necessarily terrible, but they might as well be, because they're indistinguishable from trolls. They're indistinguishable from people trying to infiltrate and sow dissent. When you're arguing against reparations and then you turn around and say, I never said I was against it. Are you trying to shine as the smarter person in the system of white supremacy? Is that your goal? So then B-Wire comes in again. I'm also genetically and intellectually superior. I am not about to compromise on that. Something, and this is my response, something that can't be objectified or measured. We can't measure your intellectuality. We can't measure your genetics, at least in a way that's going to produce anything other than your good feeling. Oh, you got big muscles. You ain't gonna catch no colds. You don't have any allergies. The slave owners, Jews, Germans, Japanese, Cherokee, French, can show you reparations. They can show you receipts, laws, land, money, and power therewith. And they can show you all the human rights violations Africans have endured without justice. B-Wire, who says he's an African, us Africans have long moved on. The beauty of moving on. Now he's on some move on shit. Is it really Sambo Caesar, or am I getting trolled? Now, the next person that I talk about when I get to Team Osiris, I know I'm not being trolled. I know what's up with them. I know they are real people. So I'm half assuming this is a real person. Africa moved on. Do you know how stupid you have to be to say some shit like that? So I responded, nope, you will be paying white farmers reparations in Zimbabwe, yet you never received reparations for colonial genocide. That is why they protect Israel and rob Africa today. China saw how Samboic Africa is and got in line. And I posted a picture of this Chinese guy sitting in a restaurant, and it's a cartoon. And he says, how's your foreign policy done? And here comes some black African with the conservative afro, skinning and grinning, saying just the way you like it. So then he responds, where does it say that we are paying white farmers reparations? Fool, if you don't know that, why are you even talking to me? That's what I'm talking about when I say it's Sambo, and it's sad. So I posted a picture. Zimbabwe paid $120 million already. Even under Mugabe, they were paying reparations to white people who stole their land and said that they would give it back and didn't. And that's why they got kicked off. Because one, they was like, all right, if you're going to stay, you're going to have to pay us. And the pay was supposed to come. This was supposed to be reparations to Zimbabwe from Britain. Did not come. So they kicked the farmers off. And after that, there's two different stories. Some will say that people weren't competent to farm their own land. Others will say there was a drought. I can tell you what I suspect. So that was from Bloomberg.com. I'm not even sure how accurate that link was, but I had to throw that out there. Let me move on. I already covered that. So I'm already thinking, man, it's Sambo season. Let me get away from these. Let me get away. You know what I mean? Let me get away. So I'm going to a JIP search. And I see a topic, Osiris book, Nesubi. And I'm thinking, I could have swore I saw that someone from Team Osiris did a review on Osiris book. And like in their review, it's like, we're retiring this book. And I'm like, I've seen how Team Osiris operates when it comes to at least with Asar, for the most part, that might be it. But they've got some personal things with Asar, and it's personal petty in a way that should be beneath them. I would hope would be beneath them. And this will be an education moment, because I watched the video. I watched the first half and then on and off through the second half. It was like a 3-hour video by Jonathan from Team Osiris. So on Egypt Search, and actually I was thinking about responding to the video because there was a few things that really bothered me. There's some things that I appreciate, because I think we need to challenge Osiris because he steps forward into a lot of into theoretical territory, but he's providing evidence. So when someone's doing that, what they're saying is they need help. And that help can come in the form of criticism, but it has to be constructive criticism. Otherwise, you're basically like a hyena chomping at a lion. You're just bothersome. You're pesky. I see this person, Kepra Evolution on Egypt Search, posts, what are your thoughts? Clyde Witters, who also, and Clyde, this should definitely be beneath you, jumps in and says it's a very good video. So I responded to Clyde, did you even watch the video? Because it goes against a lot of the stuff that Clyde says. And I said it gets so much stuff wrong that is wrong. So the person who I think now, I'm just going to say it's Jonathan from Team Osiris, and you'll see why I suspect that it's Jonathan. Matter of fact, I'm pretty sure of it. And I'm rarely pretty sure about anything, because the world's hard to predict. But you'll see why. And he responds, name some points that were wrong. Clyde responds, not really, especially shows how Asar's emphasis on the work of Mboli is one of the main problems in his research. Moreover, I explained years ago that Asar does not understand comparative historical linguistics. So I responded to both of them. But when it comes to Clyde's point, that's more above my head. So because this guy's asking what's your problem with the video. I said the entire premise is grounded in Greenberg families. Now, Greenberg is the person that created these African language families. Okay, so I'm just going to read what I wrote, because that'll tell you a little bit about Greenberg. Was created, I think I don't even know, I think it was the 70s, because it seems like most of the critiques are in the 80s. So they're really old. He was a Jewish dude, not a whole lot about him. I would say he came off as being racist, but reformed later on, like you see a lot with Egyptology. I've gone into details about that. I forgot a lot of what I studied about Greenberg. I don't think. But here's the thing. I've long come to the conclusion that the Greenberg families are messed up. So I respond. The false premise that Negro Egyptian is a family that was birthed from Egypt. Oh yeah, here's the things I had a problem from. The entire premise is grounded in the Greenberg families, which have never been reconstructed. And it's true. The Greenberg families have never been reconstructed. They're sort of left outs, partial. There's no show the work data that I've seen outside of some work done. And I've asked a bunch of people. I could be wrong. At least with some of the language families. I know Nilo-Saharan, that's basically a throwaway language family. But you can scour the internet. You're not going to see a African language Greenberg family, like a physical model. So there's no proto-languages. And I make the point that the false pretense, because this is one of the things the video does, is it takes things that aren't even in play. These are called paper tigers, that aren't even part of the argument, and it'll beat on them, and it spent so much time on fluff. So I said the false premise that Negro Egyptian is a family that was birthed from Egyptian, which is not what Mboli was saying. Mboli, Jean-Claude Mboli, if you're not familiar with this might be above your head. If you kind of are, you can maybe do some back research. But Mboli is somebody that, Imhotep's sources. He's someone that did a small reconstruction with a handful of African languages from the Greenberg family. So the false premise that Negro Egyptian is a family that was birthed from Egypt, which is not what Mboli is saying, not dealing with diversity in sources, with the relation to the theoretical Niger-Congo family language, Indo-European and Sumerian, questioning or debunking less than 10 out of hundreds, if not thousands of demonstrations. I can see from 8 African languages in Google Translate that Egypt transliterations are no more related to Afro-Asiatic branch than they are other branches, which would suggest that we're dealing with one large language family that were created based on segregating Egypt from Greater Africa, using dates and locations as paper tiger arguments. Joshua compares the current location of Western Europe to Central Africa when Europeans themselves said they only reached that location recently. And that was to argue against the relationship with Niger-Congo, which in the Greenberg families is like an isolate family that's new and located in like West Africa, that started recently in West Africa. This language family that started recently in West Africa, which is related to languages that are out of Africa, like that right there is why I don't take the Greenberg language family seriously as any type of foundation. I might, and I hardly even do this, but I may at times refer to them as an outline or something like that. So where was I? Oh yeah, using dates, and Joshua compares the current location of Western Europe to Central Africa when Europeans themselves said they only reached that location recently. The Coptic thing is wrong too. Coptic is not ineligible from Middle Egyptian, so it's not a dialect. It's another language, as would be expected. Calling Coptic foreign when Asar and Mboli still agree that it's an Egyptian language with some foreign influence. Manetho and Mboli are not the only sources for Upper and Upper and Lower Egypt having different languages, the whole Black Egypt thing, because they were making the argument that, and this is again an example of fluff, not dealing with the data, but dealing with they're just Afrocentric, and they want to make Egypt black, and they're quoting Soy Kita when he doesn't believe that. And I said the whole Black Egypt thing with Soy Kita was dumb. It's also hypocritical to keep making the point that Osiris sources disagree with them in other areas. So that's the issue I had with the video, summed up relatively quickly. So he responds, Greenberg has not been disproven to date, blah, blah, blah. Scholars agree with Greenberg. The worst part of the video is that it uses Nessabiti's sources against it. And it also looks at Nessabiti, emphatically says that Coptic is a different language and is not genetically part of Egyptian. This is a quote that he made. I don't see how you can read that book and say that they're making that point. But anyhow, it also says that it was spoken at the same time as Old, Middle, Late Egypt, which is not historically accurate at all. Its own sources say that it's a continuation of the Egyptian language and is totally different, blah, blah, blah. If you look at Egypt with Afroasiatic or genetic content, Semitic, Berber, or Omotic within Afroasiatic, because they're geographically in the area or descended from there. So now he's saying that Afroasiatic is related to Semitic, Berber, Cushitic, Hamitic, maybe Cushitic, that's Kush. Niger-Congo cognates are distant based on number of cognates found. If you find a variable word list of cognates within Egypt only in Niger-Congo, please present it. Did you read the book? So then Clyde posts, the basic problem with Osiris' work is following Mboli assumes that Coptic is not related to ancient Egyptian. This is so wrong. This makes his whole theory groundless. It's groundless because the Egyptians deciphered using Coptic and the two languages are related. Well, but Clyde just said it was two languages. So I respond to Clyde. He said, I tell him I could be wrong, but it sounds to me that both Asar and Mboli consider Coptic to be an ancient Egyptian language, just different from Middle Egyptian, which you should know too. Anyone can look at Middle Egyptian and Coptic and see that they are different languages. So I respond to Jonathan, who I think it is. There's nothing to dismantle. It was never mantled in the first place. There are plenty of scholars that would tell you the same. Have you ever seen proto-languages of any Greenberg families? I looked and found nothing. You can test it yourself. Take Egyptian transliterations for 100 old words and compare them to words in the Greenberg families, and you'll see ancient Egyptian words are scattered all over the Greenberg families. It doesn't beacon in Afroasiatic, while Coptic barely leads. Example, and I give examples for it. I give 40. How 40 in Kemet is HM. That's the only thing we have is those two consonants, and you see similarities in these languages all across the board. Like Xhosa, 40 is a main. Amharic, it's Ariba. Arabic, it's Arabane. Igbo, it's Iriano. You see how you're seeing this on, Aba. Hausa, it's Arabane. Somali, it's Afaratan. Sudanese, and I'm not sure what Sudanese language they're talking about, and I don't think it's Dinka. It's Upath Pulu. Zulu, it's a main. Yoruba, it's Ogoji. You see this M frequently. You see the N-A-Ba. So that was just an example. I also give flower. I give family. I give serpent. Serpent, the word serpent, N-N-Y in Egypt, it's N-E, and it's the same word in Chaluba. N-N-Y, Chaluba, it's N-N-Y-O-K-A. In Xhosa, it's I-N-Y-O-K-A for serpent. So I'm just giving examples, whereas Coptic, it's drifted further than that. So, and these are, I'm just giving Google Translate examples. And then I respond, both Asar and Mboli state that Coptic is an Egyptian language that is related to Middle Egyptian. They are simply saying that it is a different language, which is true. Anyone can compare transliterations to Coptic and see this. You have a lot of cognate words, but it's not ineligible, which is what separates a dialect from a language. A person who spoke Middle Egyptian would not recognize enough of Middle Egyptian and Coptic to not have to learn a new language. I have studied enough of Mboli to make a case. I haven't studied enough of Mboli to make a case about them being spoken at the same time, but it does make sense that people of Upper Egypt would speak a different language than the people in Lower Egypt. I have no problem with that. Maybe Coptic is a new Lower Egypt, is basically new Lower Egypt with foreign stuff. So, and I'm responding to him. He says his own sources say that it's a continuation of the Egyptian language, while he's saying it's a totally different language, because they are not privy to new information or free enough thinkers. And I respond, yes, I read the book. Most of his demonstrations check out. And I give some of his demonstrations that I fact checked. I get, he had something I mentioned in the last video on God. So I give that. Let me take a quick break and get some water. So quick break. Thirsty. Might have to take some sips as I do this. So I give some demonstrations, and he responds with quotes from the book. And he's taking these quotes out of context. He's quoting because I was confused by him. I'm not even going to read the quotes that I was confused by. I'll cut to where I'm asking for an explanation. So he goes on, and he's still fighting for the Greenberg model. I'm reading through some of his stuff. And he's saying it's a consistent, and he keeps mentioning in caps, and it still stands among experts. It's been around since the 70s, still stands among experts. And I said, he says, nobody agrees with Sarin and Mboli. I said, an expert, not some fringe amateur hobbyist. Oh, is that because I had already... Because I gave him I think he might be talking about Ned or Dad. Here's the hypocritical thing. I'm going to kind of cut through this. I played the video that I have on my channel where Ned or Neb, and it's called Ned or Neb shows that Egyptian is language is like the Latin of Africa. And Ned or Neb is showing continent correspondence in concepts, which you can't dismiss as a coincidence. And he's doing it with the Greenberg families in a way that disproves the Greenberg families, because you're not supposed to see that if Niger Congo especially, or Dogon, which the Greenberg didn't even classify, if they're new languages. You know what I mean? So, and let me tell you, like the difference between Hausa and a Nilo-Saharan language, but I won't go there. Yeah. But I show that you're able to do this, and I'm showing examples. I'm showing examples on Google Translate to show how easy it is, but then I also show Ned or Neb. And the reason why I show Ned or Neb is because Ned or Neb, and I didn't even say this right away, but Ned or Neb has been on Team Osiris. They regard him as a linguist. So I'm giving him as a source, and he's acting like I'm just giving him pseudo-linguistic reconstructions that won't go to the mainstream. I mean, I'm thinking this dude Joshua is a little bit mental. If you don't know why this type of stuff is blocked from the mainstream, you're not paying attention, or you're not being intellectually honest. Because I just demonstrated how King Tut's ancestry test got no coverage in the media. It didn't even get coverage in the black media. The lie got more coverage than the truth. And that ain't hard to demonstrate. All you got to do is look up his ancestry test. You can see that. So if you're really making that argument, and that's where it starts to again become Sambo season. I'm like, okay, so now you have a problem with Ned or Neb as a source. Someone who, and the reason why is, and I just found this out, Netterneb, who they regarded as a linguist, I could show the video. I might, put a quick clip. I'm going to download that video because this pettiness, and it gets worse. They liable to just erase that video. Netterneb is off the click. I'm like, so I'm going soft so far in the discussion because I'm trying to keep this civil, but I'm becoming confused. And so I'm trying to get clarification, and I say I'm confused. Everything stated about Coptic is common sense or easily verifiable. The prayers read in the Coptic church are a different language than what was spoken in the Middle Kingdom. The video constantly appeals to authority over just that, stating that Asar was making some radical statement about Coptic not being an indigenous Egyptian language. That was one of my issues with the video. Egyptology is so back-assward that you still have a bunch of people who see Coptic as the evolution of the Egyptian language instead of an evolution of Egyptian languages. That is the only thing that may be somewhat avant-garde in Asar and Mboli's assessment. They are saying that Upper and Lower Egypt were different languages. Egyptology is dogmatically stupid. It's founded on lies agreed upon and misconceptions. They debate for a century on the race of Egyptians while there are pictures of them on the walls and sculptures in the ground. Then you have these fake Nubian people that they agree on. Egyptology is a stupid field of science to make appeals to consistent authority is a logical fallacy in the context of the video. I think you're missing the point when you say it's preposterous because the languages were spoken at different times. The point is that the Coptic Church and the Greeks moving their capital to the Delta, they spoke a language that would, through confluence, become Coptic. The prevailing point Asar is making is that Upper and Lower Egypt spoke different languages in ancient times. As some who studied pre-dynastic era, that's the main thing I study when it comes to ancient Egypt because I wrote a movie script about it. I have no problem with that. Why would we expect people from different nations, I'm talking about Upper and Lower Egypt, with different totems, deities, to speak the same language? I'm glad that someone is challenging Asar. We need to challenge our pioneers. My issue is that too much of the video is fluff with appeals to authority in a field that has none. It exaggerates Asar's claims as being radical and anti-consensus. I saw a video where Chris Arid said the same thing as Mboli and Asar, that a similarity of the languages could be explained by coming from a common source. He isn't firm about the location or the time period either. And I respond again. You are missing the point. All you need to disprove the Greenberg families is a fringe hobbyist. There is no Greenberg model. The thing isn't even half done. You're mistaking people who use it as a point of reference for supporting its methodology. Few support its methodology because it did not use methods for most languages. The video I showed was a perfect example. Netterneb is using it as a point of reference while demonstrating how it's flawed. He took a throwaway language family that wasn't even classified Nilo-Saharan with Dinka and West African language that wasn't given a family in Dogon and demonstrated how ancient Egyptian transliterations break the Greenberg model. Look at the earlier critiques on Greenberg. And this is just a quote from Wikipedia. By contrast, some linguists have sought to combine Greenberg's 4 language families into larger units. Okay. There you go. There you go right there. Edgar Gringerson, 1972, proposed joining Niger-Congo and Niler-Saharan into a large language family, which he termed Congo-Saharan. If that isn't the Green Sahara right in your face, which is exactly what actually Mboli and Asar aren't saying we know, but that's usually what they kind of allude to as a Green Sahara scenario. Roger Blanche, 1995, suggests Niger-Congo is a subfamily of Nilo-Saharan. That's the Green Sahara. So the best, okay, then I explain he has experts on his channel all the time. He cites them. I put up 2K for a debate with people who disagreed with them, like Joshua, Team Osiris, and Dr. Obadele Kambo. Asar told me from the get that they don't want to debate with them, and he was right. They either said no or never followed up. And I did. I put up 2 racks, and I was offering to share profits and fly them. I think, I know I was offering to share profits. It might have been 1 rack, a piece. But it was at least a rack, a plane ticket, and sharing. Because I know I know how cheap I am and how cheap I'm not. The video failed by even taking that stance. The cultures are too similar, and the look-alike linguistics are too grounded in culture. People aren't going to independently... where was I? They aren't going to independently invent priests with leopard skin and flywhists. I'm talking about the stuff in my last video. Male-female circumcision, finger raves, harps, magic wands, pyramids, inkblot shield design, wearing bull tails, a symbol of strength, ancestor worship, pleated beards for chiefs, harps, neck rings, oaths of collars. The fact that the video would even take that stance is one of the main flaws in the video. And the stance that he was taking is that Asar fails with lookalike linguistics and gets certain things wrong, like the Edo crown saying that it's a serpent when it's not a serpent. He made some other points that may be true. These may be some things that Asar is getting wrong, but that if that's the point you're making, you should be smart enough if you're studying ancient Egypt to know that point is ridiculous, because you're dealing with people who have this, the same. Who the hell is going to make an animal fetish? So I'll throw that out there. And he responds, no one says that Coptic and Middle Egypt are the same. To make an argument that Coptic and Emily aren't is the same is redundant to begin with. In his book, he clearly says, this is because he's not reading them right, that the Copts don't look like the older ancient Egyptians in appearance. He says the similarity in Coptic language came from foreigners living side by side with Egyptian speakers, enough to make researchers think that Coptic is the last stage of Egyptian. It's a lie, historically inaccurate, which he can't show any evidence of. Then he also says, here comes the fallacies. Egypt is so backwards that he used several Egyptologists in his book, though, and stop with the conjecture, maybe and maybes and what ifs. The dude created his own definition in what a dialect is and cited himself. Another fallacy checks Asar's bibliography. Like this, I'm reading this dude word for word, and he's still not quite making any sense. He said, see how you ignored that? There's no reason, there's no point. It's stupid to say that all languages are spoken at the same time when someone says stuff like Barack Obama and Abraham Lincoln played Madden on the PlayStation. That shows how ignorant of history they are. This dude is reaching, because that's not really what they're saying. You got to use some common sense. Even if you think the author isn't explaining it right, they've explained it in other parts. So you just got to put 2 and 2 together. So he says the entire field of African linguistics accepts it. That isn't true. Plenty of people do not accept the Greenberg model. I asked for experts to disagree with the model. I had already gave him Netter Neb, somebody who they say is a linguist. So he's a linguist, but he's not an expert. Now that's moving the goalpost. So I know the earlier critiques, which is why I said it's under heavy scrutiny, and still stood this test of time. They came to the same thing, that we're dealing with bigger families that are closer together. Or if they are smaller families, because you can always define what is, what isn't, but you're dealing with something that's closer together. So then in response to all that I listed, as far as the shared culture between Egypt and Africa, and I'm talking all parts of Africa, he said that's when now he's starting to talk in caps too. He's starting to get immature, because that's one thing that throws me off is when someone's talking in caps, that comes off as they need to emphasize everything. That's just yelling, and who the hell presses cap lock? And like, I can't write with cap lock. I'm too used to putting capital on, the first thing that I'm writing. I can't write in cap lock. I'm caps are for emphasis. So he puts laughing my ass off. And this is when I start suspecting that I'm dealing with Jonathan. Because he's trying to harp on shit instead of like considering the evidence. I'm listing animal fetishes, bull tails, circumcision, shit that people aren't going to randomly create a culture apart from, each other. This is same culture stuff. So he puts laughing my ass off. So you support cultural diffusion, i.e. people can't invent something on their own. Did you see the Oni crown comparison? Or you brought that up. And I'm like, that was a problem with this video. You're on the Oni crown when you're looking at same religion, same practices, same values, same magics, same culture. You ought to be able to see that it's the same culture. Now, and it's not, and I'll get to that. And I said, I'm still not seeing that this is even worthy of a discussion. Let me clarify. You were saying that Asar is using redundant argument because everyone knows that Coptic is not the language of the Middle Kingdom. That Asar is also redundant because researchers don't believe that Coptic is the last stage of a de facto language. Do you see why I'm confused? I never really looked into it, but I always assumed that Egyptology defined Coptic as the last stage of one language with some foreign influence. Thus, the only area where Asar and Aboli are going against the tide is when they say that it was already a different language, i.e. Upper and Lower Egypt had different languages simultaneously before there even was a Coptic. That's my issue with the video. It's too passionate about stuff where they're probably wrong. Upper and Lower Egypt probably had different languages because they were different kingdoms with different deities, totems, and sciences therewith. Even if I go by the dictionary definition of language and dialect, we're still dealing with two different languages. And then I respond, when he says that Asar's bibliography has plenty Egyptologists. And I said, that means you have to be discerning. Basing analysis on the validity of Greenberg is not being discerning. Just because the name Coptic is new doesn't mean they weren't speaking the same language without foreign influences. Writing in caps doesn't make what you're saying true. Coptic is an indigenous language to Lower Egypt, which was a separate nation for thousands of years. Why would they ever speak the same language? Again, my issue with the video, it spends too much time on fluff like this in an area where they're probably wrong anyway. I don't remember the languages. I think I'm responding because he when I mentioned Chris Arrett, that made him pause. That's White Daddy, and he wants to know what languages who. Like they, for whatever reason, they go by Chris Arrett. I don't know why. It's not like he's, I haven't read enough Chris Arrett to see exactly why, but that's what they go by. And I listened to Chris Arrett, and he said that he thought the reason why African languages are so related may be that there was a bottleneck or a time when they were all together, or like a homeland type thing. And I think he picked Ethiopia as it. So I responded with that. I can probably find that video where Chris Arrett said that, but who cares? I don't understand the whole Team Osiris fixation with Chris Arrett. They haven't explained it. They could have. They've had plenty of time. I've listened to a lot of Team Osiris. So he responds one more time. Nobody says that Middle Egyptian and Coptic are the same. Nobody says that Middle Egyptian and Coptic are the same. They are spoken thousands of years apart. Okay? Asar makes a redundant argument, saying in his book several times that Middle Egyptian and Coptic aren't the same, as if anyone in academia is making the argument that Middle Egyptian and Coptic are the same. He made up an argument in his head. Actually, I'm not sure if that's true, because let me just interject this. I think people generally say that Coptic is the last stage of ancient Egyptian. And that's what they mean by the same as Middle Egyptian, is that they have the same roots. And I think the reason why he's having trouble is he's looking for all sorts of little things to challenge Asar and Imhotep on. Why? I don't understand. I think he noticed that might be a way to get in good with Team Osiris. I don't know. If it was a healthy construction, then that's great. I think much of the video was. Just, I'm talking like 1/8. So much redundant fluff on some stuff that really isn't important. Because, and I'll get to that. So secondly, scholars say that Coptic is part of a language continuum in the Egyptian language, i.e. the last stage, and that's been proven. Asar, on the other hand, says that it isn't the last stage of the Egyptian language altogether, which is completely false. He says it's a different language that borrows from Old and Middle Egyptian speakers that didn't exist at the same time in Coptic and Common Area. If you don't see how stupid that is, I can't help you. To even substantiate that Coptic was around at that same time as Old Kingdom and blah, blah, blah. So I respond, I just showed you, I just did it. The Greenberg model is so half-assed, I can break it with Google Translate. Ned broke it in the video. Clyde already gave you a bunch of scholars who broke it in books. I gave you demonstrations that I fact-checked. Trump's your idea of an expert's opinion. And even now, I'm still not saying that Ned is somebody that you regard as a linguist. According to you, Team Osiris, Ned is an expert. And don't come with this, oh, he used to be an expert, until he started agreeing with somebody you disagree with. Come on. So I gave you a demonstration that I fact-checked. Like I said, that trumps anyone's idea of an expert. He demonstrated, I'm talking about Campbell Dunn. This was another point of contention. Campbell Dunn's a white dude who broke the Greenberg model because he was able to show that Niger-Congo, Sumerian, Niger-Congo, even Maori, Niger-Congo and Basque are related. That breaks the half-assed Greenberg model. And Greenberg never explained Dogon. Ned demonstrated how close it is to other African languages. You can just tell by looking at it. Yeah, you can just tell by looking at Dogon. If you look at enough Dogon, you're like, oh, that's an African language. Yeah. Just simple as that. I mean, it's just like you could tell if something's like a Latin language. So here's a language that wasn't classified by Greenberg, and you're finding continent and conceptual correspondences with Egyptian transliterations. Greenberg is broken. Don't go by the way of the public. They told, and this is about the debate. They told me they were down to debate in the comment section too. I put up a couple racks and no response. Is exactly what Asar said was going to happen. I'm all about expanding our knowledge, not keying with a click on forums. So I asked Dr. Cambon to debate Asar, and he said, no, I'll leave it at that. And I responded to the cultural diffusion thing. I said, I'm okay when it's reasonable. Maybe people over yonder discovered cinnamon in bread independently. But if I see cinnamon rolls, I think one source. The type of shared culture in Africa is like the cinnamon roll. Chancellor Williams said it, but I don't think a lot of people understood it. Everywhere you go in Africa, you see the same culture. This was probably true before recorded history. That's another issue I have with the video. It uses dates as paper tigers and a deflection. It's a common logical fallacy slash tactic among melanated people. Osiris' assertion have little to do with exact timescale. The video is beaten up on something that isn't relevant in context. You're doing it too by saying that he needs a history lesson. Herodotus stated the Ethiopians, when it was in the middle of Africa, and Egyptians, for the people, the Colchis are evidently Egyptian, and the Ethiopians alone of all races of men have practiced circumcision from the first. The father of history can't give a date on circumcision in Egypt. It goes back to the Old Kingdom at least. I would argue that it's older than that. Now, if we talk about female circumcision, insert racism. I can give you examples of people saying that it was brought to Egypt from Sub-Sahara. When it's something negative like that, they're like, fuck a cultural diffusion that came from Africa. And that right there is a point of contention. I would argue that Coptic is the last stage of the... And that right there is a point of contention. I would argue that Coptic is the last stage of an Egyptian language, not the Egyptian language. And he says, Asar, on the other hand, says that it's the last stage of the Egyptian language altogether, which is completely false. And I says, because he and I do not think that there was ever an Egyptian language. Egypt always had languages. You missed the point that Asar was making. This is from Mboli's analysis that included Coptic in a separate branch from Middle Egyptian because there's always multiple languages. Therefore, whatever came before the name Coptic was also a different language. So when Asar says they were speaking Coptic in the day, he is saying a new language in name only, or it evolved from a language that was already different in ancient times. And this is responding when he says the main reason why they seem to be highlighted in the video is a desperate, futile attempt to push Copts out of indigenous Egyptian history. This is where he's just making stuff up because of what Asar says they don't look like the people on the walls. And I replied wrong. Asar was citing Mboli, whose analysis demonstrated that Coptic was an Egyptian language that was related to other African languages more than its foreign influences. The only real point of contention is over the amount of languages. They could have critiqued Asar and fluff statements like the Coptic not looking like the people of the ancient Delta. Instead, they grabbed the fluff into a paper tiger. That's my main issue with the video. They way too fluffed. It's way too fluffed with deflections and paper tigers. Our conversation is a perfect example. Ned or Neb destroyed Greenberg in 7 minutes while they spend hours on fluff. So he responds, he demonstrated that shit that blah 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 likes to their followers. No, he's talking about Campbell Dunn. And again, this is a white dude working with the Minoan language, working with the Basque language in Niger Congo. He said he demonstrated the shit that Asar-Imhotep and the likes of his followers, genetic relations just proved that the Basque people. First of all, this is wrong. Basque in ancient times, yes, are related to modern Basque. However, modern Basque have a whole bunch of African markers. That's old news. So you don't really want to use genetics. And then he's using it in a way that's dishonest. I missed that at first. I missed that. This is exactly why the experts are the experts, amateurs are the amateurs, blah, 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 blah. Again, he's not acknowledging Ned or Neb. And so right now I'm just letting him hang himself, and then he responds, I don't need your conjecture, and still back in caps. Stop trying to be Captain Save Us pseudo. Asar-Imhotep said the languages mutually influence each other, meaning the Coptic influenced Middle Egyptian and Middle Egyptian influenced Coptic as he put side by side. Please stop commenting. He's getting real salty. And he's not saying anything still. Because if Coptic influenced Middle Egyptian, all that means is it had a different language before it was called Coptic. So because he can't deal with how he misread Asar-Imhotep, he's getting salty, writing in caps, and basically throwing a bitch fit. And if you look, this ain't the first time, and Ngozi did that with Asar-Imhotep. And it was crazy. Like Asar Imhotep was on, I think Jonathan or Benjamin's show, I forget his name, and he said, look, if you bring Ngozi on, he's just gonna start yelling and threatening people, and that's just his character. And I'm like, really, y'all? In 5 minutes, Ngozi threw a fit. Less than that, in like 2 minutes, he threw a fit. And this dude, all I'm doing is inquiring and saying what's wrong with the video. And I have to be a fan. Like, here. This is what he says. Asar said himself that they identified with people from the agency. He said himself that Coptic is a result of borrowing from Middle Egyptian speakers. He also says that if they were indigenous, they would have to borrow any Greek characters. Oh my goodness. Then he says, you're just an Asar Imhotep fanboy. You remind me of a religious person. I quote directly from the Bible, and they say I'm not, reading it verbatim. And I'm like, dude, you're intentionally getting this stuff wrong, because you can't study Mboli and Asar Imhotep and come to the conclusion that they're trying to push Coptic out of the language family, when Mboli's recreation does just the opposite. So I respond back in caps. You seem angry. Why you mad, bruh? I just gave you Netterneb's demonstration, which I fact-checked, a person that Team Osiris regards as a linguist. And I showed him the video. I'm going to have to download this video, because these petty dudes, they probably would mess it up. Like, it wouldn't be surprised if they took that video down, because now their whole cultish thing is Netterneb is agreeing with Asar, and we're tribal Negroes who don't like Asar. And I'm like, dude, y'all can have your study groups, but this whole personal stuff and this childish throwing a temper tantrum and saying and deflecting because you can't deal with how you're getting it wrong, or you can't deal with the fact that I'm cutting through your bullshit. Sambo season is not the business. That really threw me for a loop, because I'm like, man, I was cool, and I was holding back because I knew what he was going to do with Netterneb. I knew he was going to act like Netterneb is some base neophyte, the guy that they have on their channel, that they like. 8 months ago, they had Netterneb on their channel, but it was before I started seeing this dude, Jonathan. So they're not messing with Netterneb anymore, because Netterneb is studying Mboli and disagreeing with them. And that's tribal, childish nonsense. Team Osiris, cut it the fuck out. Grow up. If you applied this same level of scrutiny to Greenberg, you'd already realized that Greenberg languages were never really put together from the get. You'd be past that. You'd be on the bigger and better things. You'd be part of a new reconstruction to outline African culture, because that's where you get it, through language. They'd be past that. Let me take a quick break. I'm going to add something real quick. I respond because he's still doing this whole thing with Sumerian being related to Niger Congo. I don't know how anybody could be this deluded. I really don't. He's calling that Sumerian, parentheses, another language isolate, is Niger Congo. Who's really saying that it is Niger Congo? We're saying that there is no Niger Congo, that it's related to languages that have been false classified as Niger Congo. But anyhow, and I said that's because it is when it comes to Sumerian. People have known about the relationship to the languages Greenberg called Niger Congo and Sumerian for a long time. And I quote an academic source, and I know not everything from academia.edu is academic. But I quote that where somebody, Matthias, does a paper. He says the Basque language is often touted as a language isolate, yet a careful study of the language shows that it's related to Sumerian. The many features of Bass reveal that it's derived from a Niger-Congo language. I'm done. I'm done. Which I've been able to identify as Igbo, and this person gives a bunch of examples with Igbo. And I said, that's called collaborating evidence. It goes back to Willibald Wagner, 1935. This was a dude who went to Africa, was studying African languages, studying Sumerian, and he wrote up a book saying saying that it compares to Bantu. And it's called Comparative Lexical Studies Sumerian Bantu. Since you've had Winters, Hermstein, Ifejika, Walker, Imhotep, Dunn, Neb. But they are all wrong because of Greenberg. That's what I mean about being discerning. That's what's wrong with the video. The Greenberg families have no proto-languages, yet they argue that the Niger-Congo languages, which people have demonstrated since the 30s are related to how African languages are younger and begin in West Africa. I show them, I give them another source. It's Niger-Congo Indo-European. Yes, there's a site called NigerCongoIndoEuropean.net, and it shows all the African words. And this is just hypothetical. This is just somebody being hypothetical, because unless you really go into it a little deeper, it could be coincidence, but there's so many of them, the African words that are in Basque. And if you just look through Basque, you can kind of predict it. I did it on Google Translate. I found some. I'll get to the ones that I found in a minute. And then I respond, I see why you're mad, because I cut through your BS. You jumped off your original claims onto something else. Then make a big deal about the something else. I think you are Jonathan from Team Osiris, because that type of paper tiring motion is what was in the video. At least you made a funny Captain Savaho, Captain Savasudo, but it's still childish. I never said that Imhotep and Mboli did not claim that Coptic wasn't spoken at the same time as Middle Egyptian, just not Coptic as we know it. That's the crux of their argument. That is the only thing that is really new about their argument is the two languages. And then I put swimming it, just posted Mboli's model. As you can see, Coptic is an indigenous African language related to other African languages that, according to Asar, was spoken in ancient times. Your lack of reading comprehension is amazing. If Asar is already telling you by citing Mboli that Coptic is indigenous Egyptian language, when he mentions borrowing from Middle Egyptian speakers, he's talking about the other languages of Egypt. When he says foreigners using a different script, he's talking about people who look like, and I show some of the light-skinned modern Coptics. And I said they may be speaking an indigenous language, but you can tell they aren't from there because they're using a foreign script. Why are we so tribal? He's intentionally misreading this. He has to be intentionally misreading this. Or this is the only thing he studied from Mboli. Because if you study just a little bit of Mboli, just look at the pictures. Just look at the picture. It shows that Coptic is a language that's related to his language, that comes from the same source as his language. So how are they pushing it out of Egypt? Because you have some people, after Egypt's been conquered many times over, that are light-skinned and don't look like the people at the walls as much. That's a reach. That's you placing this logical fallacy, projecting that logical fallacy onto somebody. And then another one is, it's because I'm an Asar Imhotep fan. You have no information you have to resort to. Are you just a fanboy? But what's going on when this individual, Ned or Neb, is not a good source? When 9 months ago he was a good source, he was showing Team Osiris how to do comparative linguistics. This is what I mean, brothers. You cannot be like this with each other. But it gets worse. He reveals himself. He responds, and this is the end of it. And laughing my ass off again at somebody on Facebook debunking a language family that even experts have not to date. In caps. Again, I don't even know who he was talking about, somebody on Facebook. I posted Netter Neb, who was on YouTube, and Netter Neb's not the only man. A whole bunch of people have debunked the Greenberg language family. This is delusional, crazy person stuff right here. And then he reveals why he's crazy. He says, and I'll read the whole thing. And laughing my ass off at somebody on Facebook debunking a language family that even experts have not to date. Ellipses, ... I'm so glad I'm not Afrocentric, laughing my ass off. That right there, and I respond, that right there is why you fail. That's what leads to circular reasoning. Laughing my ass off, at least I'm not Afrocentric. I'm glad I'm not African-centered. I mean, here's the thing. People classified as black aren't really stupid. I don't see stupidity. I see that this dude did some good research. He got a Saramotep on some things. I see intelligence, smartness. But what I also see is it's just an alarming amount of ignorance. You can have a lot of intelligence, but if you're ignorant to the game, you're just a smart, dumb nigga, as they say. I didn't make that one up. It's just the ignorance. And I hate that they did this, because this didn't come organically. This came from 400 years of abuse. Again, it goes back to reparations. And it also goes back to family, because if you notice, he can't, and Ngozi demonstrated that they can't hold a conversation with a man without accusing them of being fanboys. I mean, shit, if I'm Justin, a Saramhotep fan, he should have fun taking me apart. If that's all I'm bringing to the table, but pom-poms and a cheerleading outfit, you ought to have a field day with me. You ought to have all the evidence. I shouldn't be the one providing the evidence, and you shouldn't be the one saying expert hypocritically, because remember, you were cool with Netter Neb before. This is alarming, this amount of ignorance, this childish stuff. It goes back to family and having, I can't even say, it's gotten to the point where you just can't have more fathers. Having more fathers, because a lot of these guys, they're stubborn and they don't change. They have kids, and hopefully that is what changes them. But a lot of times that isn't what changes them. Some dudes have all that baby mama drama because they didn't grow up. I got issues with some of the laws, which goes back to laws and family and the way child support incentivizes fatherlessness. But I'll be the first one to say, a lot of our men haven't grown up. Laughing my ass off, at least I'm not African-centered. You're studying a culture that, I just did a video, is super African. That couldn't be more African if it tried. I mean, they got animal fetishes for good luck, wearing bull tails in war. It's like a hodgepodge of all the things you see in Africa is ancient Egypt. In them 3,000 or so years that they put the stuff out there for people to see. It's out there now. And I see an inferiority complex, and that's where it becomes Samboic, where Greenberg, some albino, classified as white, who practices Judaism, people have been knocking his stuff out of the water. I'm showing, and notice the only person he paused on was Chris Ehret. What did Chris Ehret say? I'm showing sources from 1930 where they're demonstrating the relationship with Basque and not with Sumerian and Bantu, which would be Niger-Congo languages later. And that's the thing. It's a sheepish mindset to where, like I said, he's smart enough to where if he put in that much work, it's just like, with Ngozi. Ngozi is high speed brain power. And he uses it when you see him in a Saramotep when on, I think it was Joel Benjamin's show. It was Joel Benjamin's. He ends it by saying, I'm going to study linguistics and I'm going to prove you're a fraud. That's circular reasoning in a nutshell. You are a fraud, therefore I can study, not to find out the truth, not to find out where somebody is getting some things wrong and tighten their knowledge, but to prove that they're a fraud and that they can't speak French. That's childish. That's of low character. You sound like a goddamn supervillain. I'll foil your plans, Batman. That's Samboic. And we can't have that. We're wasting intelligence. We're wasting research on basic plantation Samboism, man. For what? For what? So you get what? What do you get? What kind of trinkets do you get? What do you get? You're still powerless? Just like them fools on Twitter talking about we ran out them, quoting Mandela, and we ran them white folks out. Fool, what the hell are you talking about? I mean, this is ridiculous. Sambo season in 2017, that bothers me. I'm especially when I know that I'm dealing with melanated people. On Twitter, I have some hope that I'm dealing with trolls. I'd rather it be trolls. I'd rather it be a fake person infiltrating us, causing who knows what damage, than to know that we have that level of ignorance. Not just ignorance, but proud, I'm holding my balls, I'm superior ignorance. I'll give you intelligence. I'll give you IQ, because I think, that is hoaxish. This whole thing about melanated people having low IQs, I'll even give you that. But you're the most ignorant people in the world. Your balls in the hands ignorant. You're studying an African culture and you're childish talking about, I'm glad I'm not African-centered. I'm giving you sources that were okay with you, with your team, your tribe, 8 months ago. And this these aren't even big issues. The real big issue, the real big point of contention with Asar, Mboli, or even include Clyde Winters and Team Osiris, is Team Osiris is stuck on a 1970s African language model. And they're using all kinds of logical fallacies to justify it, when, like I said, you can use Google Translate and show that the language model is broken. First of all, there is no model. You cannot find a recreation of Afro-Asiatic. So we're way past the time when we needed to say, to hell with Greenberg, and create language families and go through that. Simple as that. We're way past that time. And instead, you got people who are trying to do it bit by bit, because it takes a lot. It takes a lot. And Boldly, I think you only did like 7 or 8 languages. That's difficult. Emotion. Inability to talk as men. That's why they ran from the debate. And I wasn't going to mention this because I was going to keep this to myself. Yeah, I went to Team Osiris in the comments of their video, and I said, "Hey, y'all got issues. I think you got some decent points, enough to where, and truthfully, I'm glad it didn't go down, because they would have ran from it. If that's the level of scholarship to where you've got 3-hour video and it's 80% fluff, 10% questionable, 10% good work. 10%. And Asaramotep will say it himself. He'd say, you know what? They proved me wrong on a few things. But the thing is, that wasn't good enough. So then they start playing the dishonesty game and pretending to misread something where, man, there's no way you can look at Mboli's work, even if you're just reading it through Asar. But I mean, shit, if you're going to make a video that thorough against one book and you're using these points, you got to be right. You can't say that they're trying to push Coptic out of Egypt when Mboli in a graphical image shows Coptic's development in Africa, in Egypt, and says that they were speaking it before the Greeks even got there. Now, and then another thing he does is he'll say, oh, so you mean they were speaking Coptic way back then? No historians agree with that. That means they don't know what they're talking about when it comes to history. He may have a point there, because the book isn't as fresh in my mind. But it's also one of those things where it's more of a poor, and I don't know, because I haven't read the book recently. It's been more than a year. It's more of a thing where it's just not explained well than it's something that they really believe. They're way past believing that Coptic in its exact mode. Matter of fact, they even said that. He contradicts himself. Because, yeah, they even said that they weren't speaking Coptic. But then I think they say that they were speaking it. That's a mistake, possibly. What they're saying is they're speaking a different language. That Lower Egypt, which is in the north, in the Delta, they spoke a different language than Upper Egypt, which is understandable because they were different nations. That's the thing that's a little bit different that Mboli and Asaramhotep are saying. And even then, they cited a Greek historian, Strabo, who mentioned that people in Upper Egypt and Lower Egypt can't tell what each other are talking about. It's like they speak a different language. Well, if people can't tell what each other are talking about, it is a different language. Then he's saying he's using his own definition of language and dialect. His definition was that you can tell what people are talking about. And if you can't, that's a different language. And that might be different. Maybe other people have different standards, and they'll say that Old English is the same language as modern English. Anybody who says that, to me, that's worthless. Because you can't understand what the hell Old English is saying. Middle English, sure, that's the same language. If somebody is speaking even deep biblical English, you typically know what they're talking about. Yea, unto thee, and verily I spake. We know what they're talking about. But when it comes to Old English, look at an Old English and modern English translator. They don't even have a word for hello. Like, hello, how you doing is a bunch of words that the closest thing you'll recognize is EO. But if somebody comes at you, EO, daba, 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 you don't know what they're talking about. Just because he points at you and says, EO, daba, 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 did you say you? So, that's it for now. Boy, this is a long video, kind of a rant, but I wanted to just throw that out there because this Sambo stuff has to stop. And this is a message to Team Osiris. You don't want to debate, or else you would have taken it. In this keying behind people's back when you really don't want to debate, because it's more work than you feel like doing. It's almost like they're synthesized between laziness and hard work. They're busting their ass to do little when we need real work. So I'm sorry, Jonathan, that was weak. I was being cool with you, and to be real, I wasn't understand what you were saying. I'm not dumb. you were being deceptive. It was you were taking the whole thing with Coptic and blowing a whole bunch of little things out of proportion that weren't even jiving together. And I'm trying to simplify it. I'm like, and you can't get out of the fact that with the thing with Netter Neb, he's a good source 8 months ago, but not now. He's a linguist 8 months ago who's teaching Team Osiris, but not now. And you can't get out of the whole thing was with Coptic, because all you got to do is look at Mboli's recreation. That you're trying to, and then the whole thing with being African centered. I've watched Team Osiris degenerate with that stuff. Just think about how brainwashed you have to be to think that you are fortunate not to be African centered when you're discussing an African culture. That's hella African. That's super African. You know, I'm talking about people cutting their genitalia, cutting animal skins, wrapping them in things that are only described as fetishes. Even though they might look like medallions, they're only described as fetishes. And then you have actual medallions. Then you have amulets based on deities. You know, it's childish. And I'm saying, hey, I can't even tell you to step your game up, because it's worse than game. You know what I mean? Because, like I said, and this is to all of Team Osiris, you're in a position where you basically have to say Netter Neb don't know what he's talking about, because Netter Neb disproved Greenberg. He did. You can't take these families that are supposed to be new and use the same comparative methods that he was teaching you how to do and show that they're related to ancient Egyptian transliterations. Beyond coincidence. Because we're talking continent correspondence amongst concepts. So that's it. Long video, long rant, but it was needed. I'm going to take some time off. You will not see a video from me for 2 weeks. So marinate on this. And in Sambo season, this is not a good look. Man, you got people that think they're fortunate to not be African-centered when they're studying an African culture. I mean, just think about how brainwashed you have to be to come to that conclusion. You got people that will argue against reparations colder than any white man would, and then turn around and say that they're not against reparations. And then you got homeboy, you know, the African dude who, you know, God bless his soul. Hopefully he can grow out of it, because at least he's kind of humble and listening. He's getting frustrated because it's a shame. It's almost as if they're programmed to do the bidding of albinos classified as white, because this dude's saying he's African. Could very well be, because I've heard Africans do this whole thing. Everything that's coming out of his mouth, if I'm a white supremacist thinking, all right, let's keep the power in the, you know, with the people with the albino mutant, or I'll use a politically correct word, the albino fluctuations. Let's keep the power with them. And Negroes, you can have your delusions, you can have your superiority, you can have your spirituality. He even used that one, like, I'm more spiritual than them. I'm like, Well, define spiritual, and while you're doing that, I'll define $100 million to farmers. Okay. Oh, and then I'm gonna pull up the genocides in East Africa, Southern Africa, North Africa. Not as I don't know about as many in West Africa, but there were definitely some in West Africa. There was wars all over the place, brutal genocides, and then after colonialism, as it stood in that time, it didn't completely end, but after it shifted, the nations were so destabilized, having lost their culture, that you had places that don't really see a ton of war, a ton of action. They're fighting against each other and have been fighting against each other and fighting over petty shit like a Protestant-Catholic war in Uganda. Do you know how ignorant you have to be to have a goddamn Protestant Catholic war in fucking Uganda? Your mama and your daddy deserves to get slapped if you're doing that. So, I got work to do. I'm gonna be gone for a little bit. Chew on this. And let's end the season of the Sambo